Like and subscribe right now, or you're gonna have terrible luck for the next week.
The Jungle Book is one of the most beloved stories of all time. It tells the story of a child being raised by wild animals in the jungle. Now, if you think that kind of thing only happens in storybooks, think again. Today we will be taking a look at 10 people who were raised by wild animals. Number 10. The Russian Bird Boy. In 2008, Russian care workers rescued a 7-year-old bird boy who could communicate only by chirping and flapping his arms after his mother raised him in a place that couldn't be called anything but an aviary. Mother and child were living in a tiny 2-room apartment surrounded by cages containing dozens of birds, bird feed, and droppings. For the most part, the child was physically healthy and showed no sign of malnutrition, but is clearly suffering from Mowgli syndrome, a feral human child who has lived isolated from human contact from a very young age and has little or no experience of human care, social behavior, and of the human language. As his mom never bothered to speak to him, he learned the language of the only creatures who would, the birds. It was the birds that communicated with the boy and taught him birds' language. He just chirps, and when realizing he is not understood, he starts to wave his hands in the way birds flap their wings. The child was taken to a psychological care facility, but there have been no updates on him since. Number 9. The Syrian Gazelle Boy. In 1946, a 10-year-old boy was found living with a herd of gazelles in the Syrian desert. Although terribly thin, he was said to have been extremely fit and strong with muscles of steel. He was also reportedly a fast runner, capable of running up to 30 miles an hour. So fast, in fact, that people needed to chase him down with an army jeep just to catch him. 9 years after his capture, it was reported that the Gazelle Boy attempted to escape. He was caught and extra measures were taken so that he wouldn't escape again. According to a story, the boy was presumed abandoned as a baby and taken in by the herd of gazelles, living with them for more than a decade. Number 8. Bello, the Nigerian Chimp Boy. Bello, also known as the Nigerian Chimp Boy, was found at around the age of 2 in 1996. He was probably abandoned by his parents at around 6 months old because he was both physically and mentally handicapped. This was a common practice with disabled children among the Fulani, a nomadic people who ranged great distances over the West African Sahel region. He was found with a chimpanzee family in the Falgore forest. When he was first discovered, he walked like a chimpanzee, using his legs but dragging his arms on the ground. He even acted like a chimpanzee. He would leap around the dormitory at night, disturbing the other children and smashing and throwing things. He did become a bit calmer as the years went by, but he would still leap around in a chimpanzee-like fashion, make chimpanzee-like noises, and clapped his cupped hands over his head repeatedly. He unfortunately died in 2005. Number 7. Oksana Malaya. Both of her parents were alcoholics and were in no shape to take care of her. So at age 3, she was exiled from her home and she took refuge in a shed inhabited by stray dogs at the back of their house. For the better part of 5 years, she lived there all alone, except for the stray dogs who surprisingly took good care of her. Bereft of human contact, the only behavior she learned was that of the dogs. She became part of the pack, so much so that the first attempt to rescue her was thwarted by the dogs. She growled, barked, and walked on all fours and crouched like a wild dog, sniffed at her food before she ate it, and was found to have acquired extremely acute senses of hearing, smell, and sight. She only knew 2 words, yes and no. She has since learned to communicate effectively. In fact, she appeared in a Ukrainian TV show back in 2013, where she talked about her past life and how she is at the time. She even said she already had a boyfriend. Number 6. Traian Calderar. Traian Calderar, also known as the Romanian Dog Boy, lived wild, separated from his family for 3 whole years. His mother, Lena, said that she loved her son, but she had a violent partner who was always beating her. He was found 3 years later, and although he was already 7, he was the size of a 3-year-old, could not speak, and was naked and living in a cardboard box covered with a polythene sheet. Doctors said it would have been impossible for Traian to survive on his lonesome, and theorized that he had received assistance from the many stray dogs in the Transylvanian countryside, who apparently helped him even in death. Number 5. John Sibunya, the Ugandan monkey boy. After spending 3 years in the jungle and being cared for by wild monkeys, John Sibunya was found by his rescuers in 1991. Since then, he has earned the nickname the Ugandan monkey boy. Like the Romanian dog boy, he ran away from his home, fleeing to the jungle when he was only 3 after witnessing his father brutally murdering his mom. He was cared for to some degree by green African vervet monkeys while in the jungle. John was found by a tribeswoman named Millie in 1991 hiding in a tree. She returned with some men from her village and, as is so often the case, John resisted being captured. According to reports, John's entire body was covered with hair, a condition called hypertrichosis. Once captured and cleaned up, he was covered in scars and wounds, with knees scarred from crawling. After being cleaned up, he was successfully identified with his given name. He was given by Millie to the care of Paul and Molly Wazwa, who ran a charitable foundation for orphans. He couldn't talk or cry initially, but has subsequently learned how to speak. John now not only talks but also sings, and tours with the Pearl of Africa Children's Choir. Not bad, monkey boy. Number 4. Kamala and Amala. Amala was about 18 months old and Kamala 8 years old when they were found together in a wolf's den. You would think that they were sisters, but they are not. In fact, it was thought that they were either abandoned or taken by the wolves a few years apart. The 2 girls were eventually spotted by Reverend Joseph Singh, who built a lookout on top of a tree overlooking the wolves' den. It was the Reverend himself who rescued the 2 girls and did his best to reintroduce them to society. Unfortunately, while in the process of rehab, the younger girl, Amala, got sick and died. This sent Kamala into a long mourning phase, and Singh feared for her life as well. She thankfully recovered and continued rehabilitation. Number 3. Ivan Mishakov. In 1996, 4-year-old Ivan Mishakov decided to leave home. Out on the streets, Ivan begged for food, but gave a portion of the food he got each time to one particular pack of dogs. The dogs grew to trust him, befriended him, and finally took him on as their pack leader. He spent 2 years living on the streets and acting as pack leader. Local police knew of his existence and tried 3 times to capture him. He was eventually captured, but quite predictably, he didn't like it one bit, savagely snarling at his captors while being trapped. Because he spent 4 years with his family, he had the ability to speak. After a brief spell in a shelter, he started school. He appears to be just like any other Moscow child, yet it is said that at night, he still dreams of dogs.
Now it's time for today's best pick.
Well, I haven't found any record of a child being raised by a lion, but I did find a story equally as interesting. Number 2. Boy raised by wildcats. Back in 2008, an Argentinian police officer was quite surprised to find a 1-year-old child living in the streets of Misiones. Finding a child as young as that living alone is one thing, but what's amazing is that it seems that he was being taken care of by wild feral cats. The officer that found him said that she saw a group of cats huddling together. She found it quite unusual, so she decided to take a closer look. That's when she saw the young boy eating the scraps foraged by his feline caretakers while they licked him. The moment she walked towards the child, all the cats hissed and spat at her. The police later found out that the boy's father was a homeless man, and he said he lost his son a few days earlier while out collecting cardboard to sell. Lucky for him, cats are naturally protective. If not, the 2 would have never been reunited.
Before we move on, I've got a little challenge for you that'll take 5 seconds to complete. So here's the deal. You just leave a like on this video, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell, and you will get 25 years of amazing luck. Try it really works.
Number 1. Dina Sanichar. Hunters were roaming a forest in India back in 1897 when they stumbled upon a very puzzling sight. A 6-year-old boy crawling on all fours following a pack of wolves. This was the first time anybody saw Dina Sanichar, later called the Wolf Boy of India. The hunters decided to take Dina back with them to civilization, with great difficulty I might add. But they somehow managed to do it and turned him over to a mission-run orphanage where he was baptized and given his name. There he stayed for the rest of his life. Despite being in contact with people for most of his life, he didn't quite lose his feral ways. He wasn't mute, but never showed any capacity for human language. He preferred making animal noises instead. He only ate meat, sharpened his teeth with bones, and shunned clothes. He did make a friend though, who was another feral boy also brought to the orphanage. His story was so amazing that he became the inspiration for one of the most amazing books of all time, The Jungle Book. Do you know of stories of other feral children? Let us know in the comment section below. Want to watch more videos about amazing people? Click on any of the videos you see on your screen. Thank you for watching and see you on the next video.